Welcome to my channel. If we haven't met before, I'm Kari Greger.
Hello, gorgeous.
I'm so glad you could join me. Today, I'm making plant-based pepper jack cheese. You can slice it for a sandwich, you can shred it to put it in a burrito, or just munch on it with a fruity drink. Let's get into it.
Take 2 cups of raw, unsalted, uncooked, unroasted cashews and put them into a saucepan. Cover them with water and boil them for 10 minutes. Or you could soak them overnight. Drain and rinse them with some cool water. Put these into your high-speed blender. To this, add 1 cup of plant-based yogurt. Now, we have another video that has the recipe for the yogurt in it, so please check the informational card above or the link in the description below. Add to that 4 tablespoons of miso. If you want to have soy-free cheese, then use chickpea miso. Half a cup of Rejuvelac. Rejuvelac is a fermented grain water we made in a previous video. Half a cup of tequila. Doesn't matter if you use the gold or the clear. The alcohol gets cooked off anyway, so it's just the flavor we're after. 2 tablespoons of nutritional yeast. Half a teaspoon of salt. Half a teaspoon of garlic powder and half a teaspoon of onion powder. Cover it and take it to the blender. Blend this on high speed until it is completely smooth. This could take up to 6 minutes. Check the smoothness of it with your finger by rubbing the mixture between your fingers to feel if there's any grit. In a glass container, pour the mixture from the blender and cover it with a cheesecloth or tea towel, something like that to keep the dust out, and put a rubber band around it. We're going to let this culture for 48 hours. Make sure you have everything cleaned off, all the edges, so that we don't have anything sticking to the outside. We want to keep this nice and clean inside, but let it breathe. It has to culture and ferment. Make sure that you label it clearly so you don't forget when you're going to cook it. 48 hours, 2 days. So I always put the date on there, what's inside, and when I'm going to cook it. There, we'll just let it rest.
This has been culturing for 24 hours, and I can see a few bubbles. So that means it's fermenting and culturing very nicely. It's going to taste so good. As I've said before, making cheese is a dance between fermentation and time. And it certainly is well rewarding. Remember, when you make it yourself, you have total control over the fat, salt, and sugar.
Want to be in total control?
There's no such thing as total control.
Of course there is.
If salt is a concern, you can cut some of it out, but you can't cut all of it out when you're making cheese because the salt is the natural preservative in the cheese. Please check below for items or ingredients that I've used in this video. I have a new Amazon affiliate status. I receive a small commission for qualifying purchases on Amazon, but it doesn't affect the price you pay in any way. So if you purchase something that I've recommended, great. If not, great. You will simply be supporting my channel by using the product links to go to Amazon. So thank you. Please, as usual, like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you know when another recipe is posted.
2 days later, or 48 hours, you can see that it has bubbled up a little bit. You can see some bubbles underneath there. Now this does not bubble up quite as much as what the cheddar did in a previous video. It's just not quite as fluffy and bubbled up as that. But That's just a characteristic of the cheese. It's probably because of the amount of alcohol that we put in there that it doesn't get as much chemical reaction as it cultures. Pour your pepper jack cheese into a non-stick pot, and we're going to cook it on the stove. First of all, we have to add the thickeners. We have 5 tablespoons of tapioca flour. I find tapioca flour is very forgiving compared to other thickeners. You're not going to see as many lumps. 1.5 tablespoons of carrageenan powder, half a teaspoon of xanthan gum, and half a teaspoon of salt. The salt is optional, but preferable. Blend this with a whisk or something until you get as many lumps out as you can. This is about as good or as smooth as you need it to be. You can still see there's a few lumps in there, but as I said, the tapioca flour is very forgiving.
Please, to repeat after me. Pepper.
Pepper.
Pepper. Pepper. Pepper.
Pepper.
Measuring the peppers. I'm going to show you. I used dried peppers for this because I think it's important for the preservation of the cheese. If you use fresh peppers, you have to cook them because they may give off some bacteria or whatever that's going to cause your cheese to mold. So I prefer using the dried peppers. It's the safer option when we're talking about preserving something. Check the recipe in the link below and it'll give you the amounts of pepper to put in for mild, medium, or hot. I'm using hot pepper because it's just really spicy. Really, you don't have to put any pepper into this at all if you don't want to. It's a fantastic cheese without the peppers, equivalent to jack cheese or mozzarella. We have here 4.5 teaspoons of red pepper flakes, and this is the jalapeno peppers I just had to show you. I put them into a coffee grinder to get them down to the right size. So I've got 2 teaspoons of dry jalapeno peppers. I also have 1.5 teaspoons of dry habanero peppers. These peppers were also a large size, and they had to be put through the coffee grinder to get them down to the correct size. I'm going to mix these together. They do not go into the cheese in the beginning because I find that, especially if you're using fresh peppers, but also if you're using dry peppers, color leaches out of them and then it just churns your cheese kind of a rosy color. You don't have the flecks against the creamy backdrop of the cheese. It kind of cooks it in and it blends it all together. So been there, done that. Now I've learned to fold the peppers in after I've almost cooked the cheese to where it's going to be needed to set. Over medium-high heat and in this nonstick pan, stir and stir, cook it, spread it over the bottom, and when it gets to be about this thickness, well, it's not quite a dough yet, but when you see it forming into a dough, that's the time to fold in the peppers. So we just keep folding it in over, spreading it across the bottom. This is cheese making. This is hand-turned cheese. Yes, I just sort of smash it against the bottom of the pan so that the heat goes through the entire cheese. Now you can see it is getting to be a dough. It's almost like I'm kneading it, like a bread dough. There we have our bread dough quality, and we're going to throw in our dried red pepper, jalapeno, and habanero. This is going to be very nice and spicy. Bring on the heat.
Dude, I can't see anything out of my left eye. I see dead people. My God, even the water's spicy. Who does that?
Just fold it in and try and distribute those peppers evenly throughout the cheese. If you get some sticking to the bottom, spread the cheese over it and the moisture will transfer and will help it pull off. You have to be careful that you don't let it get too browned. Most of the time the brown mixtures will fold in, but if you get like close to being burnt, like a toasted look to it, then you might end up having to pick out burnt parts. This worked out well. The moisture of the cheese just kind of absorbs that. And you can see how I often turn the heat off and then keep folding. I'm going to make 2 cheeses out of this batch, so I have to divide, and I'm doing it by weight. Divide it in half. So half the cheese in one mold and half in the other. I am using my rubber gloves because the cheese is hot and I'm going to be handling it. You'll see in a minute. This came out, back and forth. There was a little bit of back and forth, but it came out to be about 17.25 ounces per wheel. So you could turn it into how many wheels you want. It doesn't matter. You can make small cheeses or large ones. I was aiming for something, close to being a pound. So 17 ounces per cheese, that's going to reduce down. I expect to lose about 4 ounces per wheel when it dries and ages. I ball the cheese up. This is why I'm using the gloves. I ball the cheese up and try and smooth it out as much as possible and then throw it into the mold, so that forces the air out of the bottom. And if your cheese is soft enough, you're not going to get too many pockets. So you don't have so many cracks. Try and get it smoothed out and then throw that smoothed out part into the mold. And then I use the spatula to kind of go around the edge, smooth it out, push it in, let the air out if I see any air pockets. That looks pretty good. This cheese is nice and soft. It's very forgiving. It doesn't seem to hold as much shape. It's not as stiff as the cheddar was. There you can see. There's a few cracks that'll dry and form, but the air pockets are not so much. It looks pretty, doesn't it? Doesn't it look so nice with the jalapenos and the habaneros and the red pepper flakes? You can see all the different peppers that we put into it. Let it cool and then put it into the freezer. You're going to leave it in the freezer for 4 hours, maybe longer. But 4 hours is enough to get it nicely chilled on the outside and frozen at the edges. It doesn't have to be frozen in the middle. Then take it out of the freezer, and you might have to run the knife along the edge, whatever you need to do to let it loosen up. If it's frozen solid, you won't be able to push it in the middle like that. You'll have to let it defrost a little bit. If I let it freeze solid, then I'll just turn them upside down and wait until I hear them thunk. They fall out. This just needed a little bit of coaxing and then it came out. And now we're going to cover it with salt. Isn't that pretty? Oh, it looks so nice. And it tastes great just like this, but we're going to get a firmer cheese. This is a very soft cheese. Right now it's very soft. So you could use it as a spread, like put it as a mold and, not even bother drying it if you don't want to. So salt the top, the bottom, and the sides, and then just kind of rub it around with your hands to get that. Put it the top side down because the top had a little bit of a crust forming. You can see it's a little bit browner than the rest of the cheese, and so it won't sink through the grate as much as the other side will. It's got just a little bit more resistance. Salt the top and bottom and the sides. I have a portion of a closet in the basement that I use as a cheese cave. So this is going to go down into the basement in my little section of a cheese cave. It's just cooler down here. If you can keep your cheese in about 50 degrees, between 50 to 70 degrees, and let it dry. I put a little fan in there. Sometimes I have the fan on, sometimes I don't. If you want to dry it faster, you have the fan on. And turn them every day. The next day we turn them over, the next day we turn them over. And this took about 5 days. I was trying to condense the time and make sure that I could get it filmed within a certain time span. So I rushed it a little bit. I put the fan on. This has gone down to 13.6 ounces from 17.3. So that's lost about 4 ounces. close to 4 ounces. And those are ready. They still are a little bit soft, but you can see the outside is nice and dry. The moisture will equalize. You won't see as many cracks once they've been in the refrigerator for a while and they have a chance to equal out. So wrap them very firmly in some plastic wrap or something to pull those cracks together. Then you can put them into the refrigerator. I'm going to show you my vacuum pack. I have a vacuum pack machine that I use for cheeses. I used to use it when we had cheese going to the stores all the time, and it's just been very handy to have for other things. This is my vac packet. I turn it on, and we will vacuum pack this for about 30 seconds. Make sure all of the plastic is tucked in. If you've got some kind of a food saver or something like that, that's wonderful too. I'll see if I can find something. I'll put a link in the description below to a product that you might be interested in if you want to have something that does this nice a job of vacuum packing. Yes, this is expensive. You don't need to do it. Just wrap them in plastic. They'll be fine. I mean, before I had this, I would just wrap them in saran wrap and then put them into another plastic bag, so it had layers of that, and store it in the refrigerator for a few days until the moisture kind of evened out, or just put them directly into the freezer. Oh, this one, I kind of got a crinkle in the top. Well, next time I'll maybe put that on the bottom. Looks like that bottom wasn't a lot smoother. I've got some extra plastic here, so I'm just going to cut this off. And this is ready for the refrigerator or the freezer. And you see the vacuum packing, if you package it tightly enough, it pulls those cracks together. There, that's nice and smooth. See, put that on the bottom. It worked out well. Look at how nice that is. It's beautiful cheese. It's a little darker, but that will equal out as it chills and the moisture evens out. We won't have such a rind. Into the refrigerator.
Bring me some cheese.
The cheese will be served after the cakes, my lady.
The cheese will be served when I want it served, and I want it served now.
Beautiful cheese.
Ta-da! Pepper jack cheese. Now, it looks a little darker on the outside than normal. I got this out of the freezer to show you. This is much lighter, but it's been sitting in this plastic for a while, and it's had a chance for the whole thing to even out moisture-wise. This is darker on the outside because we were fast drying it. I wanted to get it done in 5 days. You can have it drying down there in your basement or, cool storage area. You can have it drying for a week, 10 days. And if you can keep the temperature around 50 degrees and have just a little bit of air circulation going on, then it's going to dry much more even. It won't be moister in the middle than on the outside. But once you wrap it up in plastic and it sits in your refrigerator, the coloration is going to even out because I've cut this. And you can see, look at that. You see how nice and creamy it is in the middle and that dark rind. So once this dry rind gets moisture from the middle, it'll lighten up. We can see the red pepper. We can see a little bit of habanero in there and the green of the jalapenos. I love the creaminess. And then the heat. I'm gonna get, my nose is starting to run a little bit. The heat comes. Let me know. You must try this. And let me know in the comments below that you've tried it. And while you are leaving a comment, give me a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you know when plant-based chicken enchiladas. We're gonna take a break from doing cheese. I'm trying to alternate it so it's just not all cheese this fall. So we're gonna take a break and do plant-based chicken enchiladas. So click the notification bell and you will know when that recipe is posted. Thank you for watching.